Hello and welcome to the Forty Space. Today we're talking about Morpheus8, specifically Morpheus8 for the inner thighs, how it works, how much it costs, how painful it is, what the recovery actually looks like, and most importantly, whether it did anything. So I had 3 treatments. I spent around 1,700, 800 actually, and I have before and after footage, actual measurements, and some fairly gruesome recovery videos for you. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what happens to my inner thighs and whether I think if it was remotely worth spending the money. Very quickly, if you haven't heard about it, Morpheus8 is a radiofrequency microneedling treatment. Tiny needles penetrate the skin and deliver radiofrequency energy beneath the surface, creating controlled injury and heat designed to stimulate collagen and elastin and remodel the tissue. It's probably best known as facial treatment, but it also can be used on the body, particularly areas with loose skin. So we're talking about stomach, arms, knees, and obviously thighs. Depending on the settings and the depth use, it can also affect the fat underneath the skin, which becomes quite important in my own case. I know it sounds extremely sophisticated. In practice, somebody literally sticks very hot needles into you. We'll get to that. But first, why did I do it? So I'm one of those women who will probably always be heavier in my lower body, no matter what diet or workout I do. And actually, I like my body and I've become much more accepting of it after turning 40. But I also don't think that accepting yourself means you're forbidden to wanting to do something to improve, right? So if I can be even even more up to my own standards, like why not? So every year when I receive my annual bonus in late March, I allow myself a specific amount to spend on an expensive treatment or two. So this year I did another profiler on my face and on my cheek, which I actually reviewed earlier. And I decided to tackle my inner thighs, which have been, well, bothering me since I was 15, 14 even, because I was quite a chubby teen. Morpheus8 actually wasn't the original plan. I went to a central London clinic intended to have fat dissolving injections on my inner thighs. During the consultation, the doctor advised me against it. She said I didn't really have enough isolated pockets of fat there, and because the skin was already loose, removing that volume can actually make the laxity even worse. She called in some colleagues for their opinions, so they had like a little conference about my inner thighs. And the group decision was that I would benefit much more from skin tightening. There are a few options, but they recommended Morpheus8. It told me that tightening itself is likely to be very noticeable, and also I'm likely to get some reduction in volume, which was still my main concern. There was just kind of one problem. I'd already had Morpheus8 done 2 years ago on my knees, and the effect was, well, it was very subtle. But at that point, I was emotionally invested in doing something with my inner thighs. In fact, I had already ordered jeans one size smaller. Plus, I didn't want to lose the consultation fee of £50, which is, of course, a great basis to spend another 1,800 pounds. So here are my inner thighs before the first treatment. As you can see, there is nothing like dramatically wrong, but those are definitely not legs of a supermodel or an athlete. And I set the bar very high for myself. The skin is definitely a little loose and wobbly, especially considering I work out around 6 days a week. I maintain brutal keto diet on most days, and I have spent like a small fortune over the years on stuff like tightening creams, lymphatic drainage, and I apply SPF religiously. So I was recommended 3 Morpheus8 treatments, approximately 1 month apart. Now we get to the fun part. It hurts like hell. I'm not going to give you like the elegant version that I say, it's slightly uncomfortable, completely manageable. So Google search, it says most patients rate the discomfort as 3 to 5 out of 10. Well, this is bullshit. For me, it was extremely painful, even with the numbing cream. The second treatment was particularly horrific because the numbing cream was applied by the receptionist rather than practitioner herself, and it wasn't applied properly on the treatment area, which of course I discovered when the treatment already started. Basically, very hot needles were repeatedly penetrating sections of a completely unnumbed bare skin. Like, it was a disaster. I cried, I yelled, it was horrible. There were actually several more issues I had with the clinic, which I'm not gonna talk about now because that's not a review video. But if you want to know which clinic it is, let me know in the comments because it's a very respected brand and the rating on the Google Maps is actually very high. Anyway, speaking about Morpheus8, you also need to factor in the time. I had to arrive about an hour before each treatment for the numbing cream. On the day they had to reapply it, I spent around 3 hours at the clinic in total, plus there was obviously a commute. Also, it's not like you can entirely relax while waiting for the numbing cream to work. You're being wrapped in a cling film and can't move too much. So this is what my thighs looked like immediately afterwards. You basically leave bloody and walking slightly strangely because you really don't want your inner thighs touching each other. Be mindful of what you wear, as my pants got a few blood stains. So for the next few days, I was told no sauna, no gym, no exercise, no alcohol, avoid excessive heat, and most importantly, no sweating, which is why you should never ever do Morpheus8 in summer. So this footage is from later that evening. You can see the redness, swelling, and the little grit pattern from the treatment. And this is the next day. Mine actually got worse before it got better. It was more painful and looked much more dramatic the following day, and my husband was like, genuinely terrified. The grid marks are still there, but we'll get to that bit later. And because the treated skin needed serious sun protection, I've spent a substantial portion of this glorious summer, well, being out of the sun, of course, and applying SPF 70 to my inner thighs in panic mode. Now for the important part. Morpheus8 isn't supposed to produce its final results immediately because collagen remodeling takes time. Results can continue developing for several months after treatment, so typically between 3 to 6 months. I'm filming this around 12 weeks after my third session, so technically I may see some further improvement. But we're also not far enough along, but we're also it's good time to see meaningful difference. So, do I think the skin is tighter? Yeah, slightly. When I compare it with the footage before, particularly when I pull my skin, I think there is some improvement in the laxity. If I had to give the skin tightening result a score, I'd probably say 2 or 3 out of 5. So there is definitely something there. It's just not dramatic. But remember, my main concern when I originally walked into the clinic was volume. So let's get the tape measure. Before the treatment, my thigh measurement was approximately 54 centimeters. And now it's 55.5 centimeters. Fantastic. My weight remained at around 54 kilos, plus minus 1 kilo. I didn't change my diet or workout regime. Obviously, I'm not claiming Morpheus8 made my thighs bigger. I think maybe water retention and this very hot summer may have made me bigger. But what I can say that there is definitely no measurable reduction in the volume. So for the reduction, it's 0 out of 5, possibly -1 or -1 for the emotional damage I got for ordering smaller jeans. So how much did all of it cost? I paid approximately 1,700 for the 3 treatments, so in total, plus another 120 for the recovery serum. So we're kind of approaching 1,800. I don't think the real cost of aesthetic treatment is. I don't think the real cost of aesthetic treatments is only the money. It's also 3 appointments, arriving an hour early for the numbing cream, 1 3-hour clinic visit when the numbing went wrong, several painful recovery periods, time away in the gym, weeks of visible grid marks, and a substantial portion of my summer spent examining my inner thighs under different lighting, asking my husband, like, do they look tighter? So, all of that for what I could describe as slightly tighter skin. The worst part is that the grid marks are still visible. So 12 weeks after my treatment, despite following recovery regime religiously and buying that serum for 120 pounds. So this is particularly awful as, of course, well, I can wear shorts during the day. I can jog in my shorts with SPF, but I wouldn't wear like a dramatic mini dress going out because, you could still you could still see the marks and it's just not very aesthetically pleasing. Was Morpheus8 worth it? For me, absolutely not. If somebody showed me my current result beforehand and said, This is what you'll get. It will cost you 1,820, 3 painful treatments, several days of recovery, and all summer of visible grid marks. I wouldn't do it. It doesn't mean Morpheus8 doesn't work. It just means that the amount of improvement I personally got wasn't remotely proportionate to the money, pain, time, and inconvenience involved. And I think my expectations matter too, because if my only concern had been mild skin laxity and I was happy to spend nearly like 2,000 for a subtle improvement, perhaps I would feel differently. But I went into this hoping for tighter skin and some visible reduction in the appearance of my volume of my inner thighs. So the first happened slightly, the second didn't happen at all. And one very practical recommendation if you're considering Morpheus8 on your thighs, don't do that right before summer. Because even if you get amazing result, healing skin, sweating, sun exposure, and persistent grid marks are annoying enough. So I would absolutely choose autumn or winter. So my final verdict, would I do Morpheus8 on my inner thighs? No. Would I spend another 2000 on some completely different treatment in the future? Because I would be convinced like this one is definitely going to work. Well, based on my previous financial decisions, probably. But next time, I'm definitely not ordering the smaller jeans in advance. So if you've had Morpheus8, tell me what was your experience. I'm really interested to know whether your results were better than mine. And if you're considering aesthetic treatment and want the actual experience, rather than the clinic brochure version, subscribe to the 40 Space because apparently I'm willing to test those things so you wouldn't have to. And see you next time.